Well, and that's also why I was saying, like, you discover yourself as you continue to experience life. So your identity of yourself at 20 or 30 or 40s is forever evolving. So that's the reason why I said, hey, it doesn't make logical sense to believe that with you ever changing, that this is always going to be a good bet to make. Now, do I agree? You should be able to learn as much about yourself before you get into a relationship with a person. I agree. I think that makes reasonable sense. And logic and reason, these things are subjective. Sometimes people's logic can be off. Some people can't reason well. Some people don't actually know how to sift through what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And sometimes you only understand that as you continue to go through life and you ask other people their experiences and stuff like that. But it's just like when I listen to these conversations and like the thing that drew me to the space was that these people were having an experience that was different than mine. There were some things that interlapped for sure, without question, right? But I have the ability to listen to the validity of something and also see like, all right, well, this don't make no sense. And that's the reason why, even though you have a Kevin Samuels or you have a Fresh and Fit or you have an Anton or a Lapeef, you can make if you're a reasonable person and you can sift through what can actually stick, you don't follow these people the way that most of the masses are following them. The danger is that it's very easy to influence people that don't have a baseline of how to understand and sift through information. That's what's happening because literally people are taking statements that somebody is saying just as a one off. They didn't clarify their statement and they just said something just out of nowhere. And somebody took that as fact and now repeated that to somebody else and they keep walking. And then when you actually ask the people for the context of why they said what they said, they'd be like, oh no, I was just saying that just to be saying that. And you have a lot of people that have latched onto things that were short-sighted comments that weren't intended for people to follow, and people took it and ran with it, and it added to their fear. It added to the confusion and it added to the questions of why you guys are up here asking, well, what happened? Why is this happening? What's happening is that you're asking a whole bunch of children who are in their 20s and their 30s, because even though people are getting older, they're not always operating based upon their age. So now you got people that are older acting younger, and then they're prolonging these things that have worked to some degree in the past, and then you want to wonder why we're having the problems that we're having. It doesn't make any logical sense
It
now
was one thing
based
that
upon how people operate.
it was one thing that you just said, and I think Isaiah, somebody said that I contradicted myself, and I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of saying you're not going to be the same person that you were. You're going to change. Well, logic will tell us that nobody's going to stay the same person that they are, right? That was why the caveat to what I was saying, like at 18, I'm not the same person at 18 in terms of my likes or dislikes, right? Those things change. But what has still remained consistent, and when you look at it, most people, that is true, is that whatever your core values are, those typically those typically remain constant. You add to them, definitely, because as you go through experiences, you end up learning some other things where you can add to your value system. But if I look at where I was at 18 versus where I'm now at 45, I am a different person because at 18, I didn't know what it was like to be a mom, right? I had to learn how to be a mom once I became a mother. So now I've added some other things to the pot that I did not have before. But in terms of my value and what I valued at 18, those things are still the same. You understand what I'm saying? So I think when we are mating or trying to get in relationship with each other, that's where we go bad, is because we're not looking at what makes up that other person's core value system. I think that's where the compatibility part comes in. Not compatibility in terms of mixing up compatibility and preference. Like, I want him to be tall, I want this, I want that. It's the core value system. And like my husband, like, it was, everybody was a little like, oh, y'all are not equally yoked. Like, we're different religions, but yet we work. And the reason is because our core values are still the same. What we think, what it is going to take to have raised a family the way that we wanted to, family, be respectful, be kind, you know what I'm saying? Just certain core values that we shared together. We didn't have an issue with raising our children because the focus was on instilling values in them as opposed to making it a religious thing. And even it within having different religions, you're going to find certain core values within religions that are threaded through, that's consistent. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the part where we're needing to develop. Sometimes people values aren't in alignment, but that goes with what I think AP was saying before. Then you need to find somebody whose value system is the same as yours.
Agreed.
You're on mute, bro.
Marcus, tap your mic. Hey, oh, put your mute. Take your mute off.
All right. Yeah, I wanted to say, HD, I think you brought a real, like, relevant talking point when you were talking about talking points, right? That people just ran with. Because what I noticed is at this age, it seems like nuance is a very lost art. And it's like people don't really perceive everything. It's got to be black and white. There's no such thing as a shade of gray. And anything that falls out of the yes or no spectrum, they're interpreting it as a lie and not understanding how life actually works. And that like pigeonholes you in a real awkward position because you can't solve for anything because you need it to be this way or that way. And there's no gray area. There's no nuance. There's no wiggle room, and you kind of got to need to be like water at some point where you can you mold and form to what you need to do or be for the current position that you're in. And you said that they take talking points that may have been a one-off that somebody just said, and then they base whole philosophies around those things. That I think that's so true, and it's so dangerous too, because a lot of that stuff isn't thought out. Sometimes people be like, "Oh, you won't say XYZ online." Be like, well, it's for that specific reason. Because if I say a one-off statement and it gets taken out of context, it can be ran so far in the opposite direction, and it can become so harmful just by somebody taking it and saying, "Well, he said this before, so I kind of like his results. Maybe this is why he has results." And they come up with this whole drawn out philosophy based off of something that I might have been joking about. I might have just said off the cuff. And yeah, it's a sad thing. It's really a sad thing.